He wasn't supposed to be late again.
Jason rushed into the classroom, breathless, expecting another lecture about missed meetings and slipping grades. Instead, the room fell silent, all eyes on him, including the principal's. She stood, walked over, and said something that made his heart stop.
"Mr. Cole, I have a proposal, but it's not what you think."
Jason Cole burst through the school doors, rain dripping from his jacket, heart pounding in his chest.
He was late again.
Balancing work, home, and being a single father to his 8-year-old son, Liam, wasn't easy.
Parent-teacher meetings always seemed to fall on the worst nights.
He braced himself for judgment as he stepped into the classroom. But instead of frustration, he was met with silence. All eyes turned to him, and the principal, Ms. Ramirez, stood from her seat.
"Mr. Cole," she said calmly, "thank you for coming. Please, sit." Confused but grateful, Jason sat down beside Liam's teacher. He waited for the usual list: late homework, missed lunches, declining attention. But Ms. Ramirez didn't open a file. Instead, she looked him in the eye and asked, "How are you, really?" Caught off guard, Jason hesitated.
"Managing," he said quietly.
She nodded. "Liam is a bright, kind child.
But what he needs most right now isn't academic help, it's consistency, support, someone who sees him." Jason lowered his eyes, guilt creeping in. "That's why I have a proposal," Ms. Ramirez continued.
"We've been piloting a mentorship and support program for students and parents. I think you'd both benefit. And I'd like to personally help." Jason blinked, not sure he'd heard right. No blame, no shame, just an offer of help. That night, something shifted.
He had come expecting reprimand.
Instead, he found understanding.
And in a quiet classroom, soaked to the bone but seen for the first time in years, Jason realized he didn't have to do it all alone. Jason adjusted the collar of his worn jacket as he stepped into the school hallway.
His stomach tightened. Another parent-teacher meeting, and he was late. Again.
The secretary gave him a tight smile and gestured toward the conference room.
"They're waiting."
Jason walked in, expecting the usual: a tired teacher, a stack of concerns about Liam's missing assignments or classroom behavior. What he didn't expect was to see the principal, Ms. Bennett, sitting across from him with an unreadable expression. "Mr. Cole," she began, folding her hands.
"Thanks for making it. Please, have a seat."
He sat slowly, bracing himself.
"We've noticed Liam's been quieter lately. But not in a concerning way. He's focused. Thoughtful.
And in his recent essay, he wrote about you, his hero."
Jason blinked.
"His words were powerful," she continued. "He spoke about how you work nights, make pancakes in the morning, and never miss bedtime stories."
It was moving.
So moving, in fact, that we submitted it to the district's Voices of Courage program.
Jason's mouth parted in disbelief.
"And he won," she said with a smile.
"There's a ceremony next month. He wants you there. Front row." For a moment, Jason couldn't speak.
All the guilt he carried, the missed field trips, the late pickups, felt like they melted away.
I
thought I was here because I messed up," he finally said.
Ms. Bennett's smile softened.
"You're here because you showed up. And that's made all the difference to Liam." Jason left the school that night not burdened, but lifted. He came thinking he was in trouble, but the truth was more beautiful than he'd ever expected. The classroom buzzed with chatter as parents filled the small chairs usually reserved for their children. Posters lined the walls, student art brightened the windows, and at the center of it all was one seat empty.
Liam's.
Mrs. Harper glanced at the door for the third time.
Jason Cole was late. Again. She sighed, trying to keep her disappointment hidden. Liam was a bright, sweet boy.
But ever since his mother passed, he'd grown quiet.
Withdrawn.
His father, overwhelmed and overworked, rarely made it to these meetings. Then the door creaked open.
Jason slipped in, soaked from the rain, looking apologetic and exhausted. He scanned the room and quickly found the only empty chair. Liam's chair.
And as he sat, awkward and out of place, Mrs. Harper noticed something different.
Maybe it was the way he looked around, trying to take in every detail.
Maybe it was the crumpled paper he pulled from his coat pocket, a drawing Liam had made for him but forgot to give. Or maybe it was the way he finally looked up, eyes filled with a quiet desperation.
"I'm sorry I'm late," he said, his voice low. "I didn't want to miss this. Not this time."
Mrs. Harper smiled gently.
"You're here. That's what matters." As the meeting went on, Jason asked questions. He listened.
He laughed, even when she showed him Liam's silly story about a superhero dad with pancake powers.
That night, the empty seat wasn't just filled. It became a turning point. Because sometimes, fate doesn't need a grand entrance.
Sometimes, it just needs someone to walk in late, tired, but willing. And for Liam, that simple act made all the difference. Jason Cole sat stiffly in the too small chair, the buzz of fluorescent lights humming overhead. He hadn't planned on attending the parent-teacher meeting, but something in Liam's eyes that morning made him change his mind.
He expected the usual rundown: missed homework, low participation, maybe a concerned note about Liam falling behind.
What he didn't expect was silence, followed by a single question.
"Mr. Cole," the principal said gently, "have you ever considered that you're doing better than you think?" Jason blinked.
"I'm sorry," he asked, unsure if he heard correctly. The teacher, Mrs. Lynn, leaned in.
"Liam talks about you.
About how you work double shifts, still read to him at night, and how he wants to grow up to be just like you."
Jason looked down, throat tightening.
For so long, he'd felt like he was failing. Every missed field trip, every reheated dinner, it all felt like proof that he wasn't enough.
"We asked parents tonight how we can better support their kids," the principal continued, "but I want to ask something different. How can we support you?" Jason didn't have an answer.
But in that moment, amid scribbled drawings, bulletin boards, and worn-out chairs, he felt something shift.
The pressure in his chest eased. The guilt quieted. And he realized maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone in this. One meeting. One unexpected question.
And one life, his, altered forever.
Because sometimes, the most powerful moments aren't loud or planned.
They're found in quiet classrooms, where someone chooses to see beyond the surface and simply asks the right question.
Jason Cole walked into the classroom with his shoulders tense and his head down.
He was bracing for another list of things he'd missed assignments, missed notices, missed chances to be the parent he wished he had time to be. Liam's teacher, Mrs. Rowan, greeted him with a kind smile. Beside her sat the principal, Mr. Harris, which only deepened Jason's dread.
He took a seat, cleared his throat, and said, "Let me guess. It's about his grades." Mrs. Rowan shook her head gently. "Actually, it's not."
Jason looked up, surprised.
"Liam's doing okay academically," Mr. Harris said. "But school isn't just about grades. It's about connection, confidence, and emotional safety." Jason furrowed his brow. "I'm trying. I work nights,
We know," Mrs. Rowan interrupted softly.
"And so does Liam.
He talks about how you make breakfast even if you haven't slept, how you show up even when you're exhausted.
He notices." Jason's throat tightened.
"We called you in because we see something special in Liam," she continued.
"He's compassionate. Insightful. Curious. But we also see he carries the weight of wanting to make things easier for you."
Mr. Harris leaned forward. "We're starting a support program for families juggling challenges like yours. It includes tutoring, meal help, and counseling for both students and parents.
We'd like to include you and Liam." Jason blinked, caught off guard. "You're offering help? Not judgment?" Mrs. Rowan smiled. "This meeting isn't about what's wrong. It's about what's possible."
Jason walked out of that classroom a little straighter. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a failure.
Because it turned out, school wasn't just about report cards. It was about hope. And someone seeing the whole story.
The hallway lights flickered as Jason Cole hurried toward room 12, damp from the drizzle outside and anxious about the time. He was 20 minutes late for the parent-teacher meeting again. Work had run over, traffic was a mess, and he hadn't even had time to change out of his uniform. He pushed open the classroom door quietly, expecting an annoyed teacher and an empty chair. Instead, the room was quiet, but not empty. Liam's teacher, Ms. Carter, sat at her desk with the principal beside her. They both looked up and smiled, not the strained, polite smile he was used to, but one that made him pause. "Mr. Cole," Ms. Carter said warmly, "we're glad you made it." He nodded, took a seat, and braced himself for a long list of what Liam wasn't doing right. But that list never came. Instead, Ms. Carter handed him a folded piece of paper, Liam's journal entry from last week. It read, "My dad is my hero. He never misses bedtime, even when he's tired. One day, I'll work as hard as him and still laugh at the little things. I hope he knows I see him." Jason stared at the words, stunned. "We wanted you to see what Liam sees," the principal said quietly. "Because sometimes parents only hear what they're not doing and forget what matters most." Jason felt his breath catch. For so long, he'd thought he was just surviving. He didn't know he was inspiring. They spoke for another hour about Liam's strengths, a mentorship opportunity, and how the school wanted to support not just students, but families. Jason walked out into the night feeling different. That night, he came expecting a meeting. But destiny had been waiting in that classroom, and had met him with open arms.